I don't.
Maybe one went to your house. Sometimes they send mine.
For recording service.
It's Chris's.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's usually.
You're not Chris.
All right, we're going to call the Monday, October 7th Emmaus Borough Council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have anyone here for a public appeal in the audience? Anybody online? Is there anybody online?
Yeah, two people.
Do you?
So you need to. You're one of them.
No comment?
Bring it up and unmute them.
Oh, yeah. What happened to the screen behind you, Shane?
To speak. Introduce themselves.
What are they speaking?
The upcoming event.
Is it on the agenda?
No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so now's the Rotary, now would be the time for you to come up and speak.
I have no idea.
Good evening, everybody. Eric Locke from, I own Eric J. Locke Jewelers, live on Spruce Street, and also the current president of the Emmaus Rotary Club for you. So what I'll just mention this evening is we are proposing a phenomenal event next May 31st, utilizing Community Park as a fundraiser for our organization. We have a food program currently that runs us about $30,000 a year feeding hungry children in East Penn School District. On average, we only raise about $30,000 a year, so we've exhausted our grant opportunities. So modeling what other clubs have done to raise money, we're looking at a community-wide type event at Community Park, also joining with other service clubs who are part of our food coalition to have a total event. We're going to have vendors there, beer, wine, a type of festival. We're aware of, we filled out the applications forms already. I've had the pleasure of chatting with Chris and the whole Parks and Rec at their last meeting, that they seem very enthusiastic for our event. So we're looking to somewhat similar to the Emmaus Community Days we had years and years ago that involved a lot of things with the community. So we're looking at bringing in different vendors, looking also of having businesses showcase themselves at the same time. Our main part of us for fundraising will be through the selling of the beer and the wine for us. We realize there will need to be police presence, all that kind of stuff. We're about an 80 strong club. So we know we'll be utilizing all of our members for different aspects of things, parking, everything like that, to do that. Again, we welcome the support from the borough. We realize there are things that we'll need to be doing. We're formulating all our plans now. Basically from what we saw from our last meeting with the Parks and Rec, they're enthusiastic about everything. So we were just trying to make sure first that this can be a go. And it sure appears that it is. And at which point now we have an awful lot of work ahead of us utilizing the Lions Club, Kiwanis, all that. But yes, Roy.
The date change, is there a reason for the difference?
Yeah, my co-chair Cindy Horniman is actually going to be traveling for Rotary the mid 2 weeks of May in Italy. So that's the only reason that we needed to move it back and try to make sure we're not conflicting with other things.
First, the thing is, it's for Rotary related business. And I'm Cindy Horniman, by the way, nice to meet you. We're very excited. We think that this opportunity.
Into the microphone, please.
We think that this opportunity can really pull the borough together, as well as businesses and every service organization. In our district of Rotary, which has 45 clubs, there are several groups that are smaller than us that raise more than us with half the people. So I think with the Borough Council and everybody in the community, we can make this an annual event that people will come to Emmaus for. The date change is twofold. When Eric and I first started talking about this, we thought mid-May would be good. Of course, we didn't look at our calendars. The weekend of May 31st would, to me, is better and us because it's after Memorial Weekend. The weather starts getting nicer. It's before graduations and before Father's Day. In talking to Chris, there was a concern that maybe the pool would be open, et cetera. When Eric and I went down there and we were really looking at space and requirements, we don't think that we would be using that section. So if that's a concern, I don't think that that would interfere with anything. Additionally, I already had a Rotary commitment internationally, which was the first thing, because of course, and that was my fault. And looking at it, we hope that May 31st works better because we need to start working on it now. In fact, as soon as you approve it, starting tomorrow, we're going to be talking to the other service organizations. So I had to interrupt and talk.
No, thank you. I appreciate the,
Would there be any other thoughts or
questions?
concerns that any council members would have at this point that we can address for you?
Jane, do we have?
It's not on the engine. It's not on the agenda right now. Because there was an unknown about the date for you guys and you were back and forth with emails. So
Yeah. And Mr. Locke, so I know originally, the original date you had talked about was a Sunday, and I believe the 31st is a
Is a Saturday,
Saturday.
yes.
Okay.
Which will serve better. We realized also doing something like this on a Sunday, still a school night, would not serve the community the best. That's why we look for the Saturday then.
Okay.
Is it your intention to use pavilions?
We'll definitely be using the Rotary Pavilion that is there. Currently, what we're looking for is keeping it on the north side of Community Park. So that's why, again, when Cindy and I kind of did a site survey of what we're looking at, we can use the north side up near the train track area, utilize the one field that's up in the back there that we can put vendors there, so that, no, I would not be looking to impact pavilions going along the west side of Community Park.
We need places for people to sit.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
just curious because that's kind of our pavilion rental time. So
And that's why, yes, I wasn't sure what, are there pavilions rented already?
Is that Memorial Day weekend?
No, it's the weekend afterwards.
Weekend afterwards? Okay,
Yes, yeah.
that helps.
yeah, so here's the issue is it's not on your council agenda for tonight to vote on because there were some unknowns that the committee was back and forth on. So
Our next
that's up to
meeting-
the solicitor whether or not you can add it. I think because of that recent court
I was
case.
going to say, technically speaking, that case has not yet been thrown out. We anticipate that we will eventually be able to amend agendas again because the law, it's not a comma. It clearly does say you can do that under the statute, but the Commonwealth Court did not read it that way. But for now, you cannot amend an agenda to add a new item. However, this is brought up in public comment, which is an exception to that.
So with that said, you have committee notes on this. The committee spoke about that in detail. So if it's in a public comment, if you're saying that's an exception,
It is
do
one
they
of the-
have to add it or can they just vote on based on his
They
request?
can vote on it based on his request because that is a singular, one of the three exceptions that is listed that they're not including as the catch-all is if it is brought up in public comment.
Do we have to bring it up as an addition to the agenda?
No, not as an addition to agenda. It has now been brought up in public comment. Therefore, the public has raised it and it can be voted upon. But you still need a motion pursuant to Robert's rules to do so.
So I'll make a motion that we allow the Rotary Club to have their first, do you have a name for it?
Not an official one yet. We were calling it like Taste of Emmaus. We may modify that.
Okay.
At which point it's Taste
So
of Emmaus.
we'll allow, I'd like to make a motion to allow the Rotary Club to utilize the community park for their May 31st event. Was this the event where they mentioned, you didn't mention any times as far as setup or closing or any of that
They
yet?
did mention.
We did on the whole form. We filled out all the forms already. We were.
Can I-
looking
You guys
at numbers.
previously saw the request form.
And can I add one addition? Remember, they are asking to serve beer and wine, so
Alcohol,
make sure
yeah.
that that is included in your motion.
Okay, I'll add that to the motion contingent upon having the proper officers and approvals and insurance. Does that cover it?
Yeah, that was from your last. Yeah. If you go and look at your last council meeting in the communications 2 meetings ago, their original request sheet is in there under communications.
Okay,
Mr. President, I would second the motion so we can go to discussion in case there is.
sure.
Thank you. Discussion? Mr. Brown?
So at our committee, I don't know if you want to chime in, Mr. Hohenscheid, or not, but at our committee, we do have a recommendation of waiving all the fees as well, Mr. Labenberg, just so you're aware of that as well.
So I don't know what fees would be entailed. We don't have fees for serving alcohol, but the officers,
Yeah.
we would, okay.
We would waive.
Is
just
there
so
a
you-
reason why? Has that set precedent for other organizations, Shane, if we do it for one?
Yeah, so as I recall, and please Parks and Rec jump in here, but as I recall, the discussion was more along the lines of this can turn into
A community
community
type
day
event.
type of event.
Yes.
And it's a bigger, broader, borough-wide kind of event. And so,
So from like our civic line item?
right. So, you know, something where like we do other events where we aren't charging because it's a borough-wide.
Think
Thank
of,
you.
think of
Big event.
Christmas. Think of the
Um,
Christmas
No, thank you.
event.
And so that was the thought that the committee had, was they think that this, despite what they might think of only a couple hundred people, it could be potentially a couple thousand people at this event if it's done right and enough people are involved.
Is there an intention to have live music?
Yes, we're looking at a potential concert. What we were,
So that would be the Arts Pavilion then?
yes, in there, yes.
We didn't get that far yet. We're having a whole list of all the things we want to do.
Okay.
And our intention would be is after we select the date, we're immediately going to meet with the other service organizations and then outline and report to you as much as you want an update where we're at.
So what are you saying?
So you're not entirely certain of the full event types and what the schedule's going to be?
Exactly, because what we were looking at first, and that's why we approached Park and Rec, and even why we're starting early. We want to make sure we can actually hold this event in the community of Emmaus. We're going to hold the event no matter what. Is it going to be Emmaus, or will we have to do it somewhere else? So that's what we were looking for. That's why we met with Parks and Rec, who, again, were very enthusiastic about it, said, okay, this is good. That's why we haven't carved everything into stone, because that's what we do. Once we have approval, then we really start hammering all the details. Yes, the original idea, as other Rotary clubs have done, is you have music. It's a whole, family community event for that. I plan on touching base with Parks and Rec as each month goes on to update. Here's where we're at. So that I don't want
Can I
anybody.
make the motion just to approve the date and the use of the park and the alcohol, and the rest can be worked out in the future?
I would actually say, and contingent upon further details to be approved at a later date.
You'll have to amend the
So
motion.
I'll amend it to say that, and,
And I would amend this second.
all right.
yes.
So that gives you the date, the
Yes.
alcohol, and the
Perfect.
use of the park, and then we'll go
Yeah,
from there.
which we greatly appreciate. That way, at least now we can know we can move forward and secure vendors, all the details. We're going to want to put up a banner that, like I filled out on the form. We'll be looking at the banner on Main Street. I personally wasn't looking for the borough to waive the fees for it, but if you do, lovely. We're okay with that. But it was more of, we want to bring this great event to the borough and for our community.
If I can,
I-
I can just
that's-
add, here
At
was.
this
the-
point, that's not part of the motion, just so
Oh,
I didn't make that part of it. It's just approval of the date, park,
Yeah, yeah.
and alcohol.
With other approvals to be made at a later
Correct.
time.
Correct. You do have the authority to waive those fees as you guys move forward, but you have not done that. That's not what's in your standing motion before you.
Okay.
And I'm fine with where we're at so far with what
Yeah.
Mr. Labenberg has done as a motion.
Any further discussion?
I think, so I'm excited about this. We, obviously, as we get more details and it gets closer to the end, we're going to have to come back to council probably for more motions, but until we get to that point, I think this is probably the appropriate approval process so that you could get started on your event if council approves it.
All right, I appreciate it. All right.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I see kids coming with those brown bags every Friday. It's a wonderful program. Thank
Yeah,
you for all you do.
we're in the last 4 years, we've packed over 18,000 meals for hungry students in East Penn School District. And that's, the need's not going away; it's getting worse. Our numbers are increasing, not decreasing, with what's going on. So we appreciate your consideration and approval on doing this.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Have a nice.
Thank you very much for your time. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further public appeal online? Hearing none. Would someone like to make the motion to approve the minutes from September 16th council meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hohenscheid, seconded by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes. Tonight, we have some decisions to make on a refuse bid and recycling collection from Whitetail Disposal. I'm going to let Shane speak of this a little bit because it's fairly lengthy. And then I believe that there's some stuff that Mr. Brown might want to discuss as well that came out of a earlier committee meeting today. So I'm going to hand it over to those two folks.
Yeah, so to get started, we put out the refuse and recycling bid out as we've informed the public over the past year. This was the final year of all the extensions that we could do. And so that's all been exhausted. We had 4 bids essentially. 2 were no bids. So Waste Management and Raritan Valley or Republic Services both submitted no bids. And so we received 2 bids, one from JP Mascaro and one from Whitetail Hauling, which is our current provider. What we did was we set out 2 options. They're very detailed options. The bid spec was well over 100 pages. I think it was like 165 pages. So there was a lot in it. There was a lot to meet. Our solicitor, you can show them, there's 2 very large binders sitting on his desk. So that's what the bids looked like. So they weren't one sheet bids. There was a lot that went into the bids.
Hurt yourself.
So there are 2 options. There was a manual option, which is what we currently do. So that's basically the as-is option, right? That was the option where, you put your garbage out front with whatever can you have, whatever recycling can you have, and they would collect it as they do today. And then option 2 was a hybrid option. That hybrid option includes, in some format, an automated hook machine in some neighborhoods. And I actually have the proposed map from the low bidder as to what that would look like if you want to see it. You can pass it out to people on that side. Actually,
Shane, to simplify, it's pretty much everything but the downtown area.
Yeah, and some of the conglomerated areas that
I saw it before.
that we have.
You see this?
Yeah.
So those 2 options. One bid was much lower than the other. And we'll look at, for example, in year 1 for option 1 under the manual. Well, we'll do the 3 years because that's the base. It's a 3-year bid for base and then 3-year of options, right? So you can do 1-year option at a time. Under the manual, Whitetail's bid total for the 3 years was $4,603,635.42. JP Mascaro's bid was $5,871,540. So there's $1.2 million difference over 3 years between the bids, and obviously that grows over 6 years. Whitetail comes in at just under 9.8 million, and JP Mascaro's bid comes on just under 12.4 million. So that obviously continues to expand. The cost difference between the 2 bids, it's important to understand that over the course of the 6 years, if you were to opt in completely over the course of the 6 years, they are pretty close to the same. I think they're within like $5,000 of each other over the course of time. Looking at just Whitetail, I'm talking now about the low bidder. I have an analysis for you. I wanted to put it up on the overhead, but we have a different login here. I can't access it. But on page, no, I think it's on page 10. I have a comparison of the Whitetail options, right? And it goes through option 1 versus option 2 over the course of 6 years. Option 1 is $9,780,959.
Page 10.
Okay, it's on page 10 on here. Under option 2, it's $9,785,162. What you need to understand is at the end of the day, there's literally $5,000 difference between the two options. Okay, so when we talk about like overall cost of the contract, there's no difference between them.
Virtually.
Virtually no difference. It's 0.0 some percent. I actually put that in there for you. It's 0.0 some percent difference. So what we would need from you is one, the motion would need to be contingent upon final review by our borough solicitor, no matter what motion you make. He has reviewed it. He's done a cursory review, but remember that we opened these Wednesday,
Yes.
right? And we took those over Wednesday afternoon. So he only had a day or two to look at them. We want to make sure that he does the final review because we don't want to end up in court again. So the contingency has to be based upon his final review. But number 2 would be you need to decide between the manual pickup or the hybrid option. And now what's in front of you is from the low bidder. So that's from Whitetail. In yellow are the areas that they would do automated collection. Okay. And so as Mr. Ladenburg was saying, it's pretty much most of the neighborhoods except for the downtown. Or the areas around the downtown. The downtown actually would probably be automated because we have a street sweeping day where nobody could park. But under the hybrid method, here's where kind of the real sticking point and the discussion point with the committee that Mr. Brown's going to talk about is it requires new cans from the borough to every borough resident. Okay, and the bid included 65-gallon cans for garbage and then 65-gallon cans for recycling. And then it also included a bid for additional cans because we know that some people or businesses in the downtown are going to need a 95-gallon. And there'd be some logistics to how do I buy them? How do I get them? How do I get extra ones? So there would be some logistical things that we would need to do. We would need to do some ordinance amendments as well if you chose that option. But what it does is it provides a unified option of everybody gets picked up, but every can's the same, essentially. Both options. When the committee decided to do this bid, we decided to allow the haulers to decide how many days they would spend in town. Okay, so right now, Whitetail takes 3 days to collect all of your refuse and recycling. We allowed them in the bid to say, am I going to do it in 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days? But you're not allowed to do it, by the way. You're not allowed to do it on Monday. You're not allowed to do it on Friday or something like that. So really, like it's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or it's going to be 1 day or 2 days. So JP Mascaro, with their bid, said they could do it in 2 days. Whitetail on both of the options said they will collect the entire community in 1 single day. So no matter what option was selected, the whole town will all be collected on the same day. All right. So you have a great big analysis in there for me. Mr. Brown, you want to take it from here, or do you want me to talk about anything else?
I think you can keep going, I guess. You're doing a fine job.
Okay.
But I can chime in if you want.
Well, okay. So no, I'll keep going because really, like, none of you care what it cost us. What you care about is what it cost you.
Right.
Right. And so like we might as well go down that road a little bit because part of the analysis was, all right, what do I pay now versus what? Because that's what you're going to write about in Wednesday's newspaper is what are they going to pay? And so right now, our residents pay if you pay the discounted rate, right? So let's just keep it at the discounted rate because the bulk of our residents pay the discounted rate. They pay $375, right? If you do the quarterly payment, it's $440. So in the financial analysis, what it says is we're going to need to raise, a certain amount of money to cover the costs. So right now, based on, what we currently pay for our refuse, our recycling, it includes our compost, all that is all paid out of that fee. You pay $375. Based on the analysis that we conducted, and again, this is not set in stone because Borough Council, when they set their budget, they set the fee structures. But what we wanted to do, because that's the only question that you would ask me from the press is, what are the residents going to pay? So we did as much of an analysis as we possibly could. And it looks like that fee is going to go up to between $490 and $495. Now, with that said, we think we could hold that steady for 4 years at that price tag. All right. So one of the things in the bid spec was we outright said we've been doing household hazardous waste every other year, and we've been doing dumpster day every other year. So what you see is in year one the cost is a little bit more than year two, and then it goes up in year three, and then in year four it goes back down. So because we're only doing it every other year, we look at it as what's the average that we're going to spend there, and we use that average number. So that way we can hold prices for at least 4 years. I think after 4 years, I think the price goes up a little bit more. And so we would have to reevaluate after the fourth year. And that fourth year, by the way, is if you took one of, the 1 year extension after the 3 year base. We think that 490 to 495 is probably the spot for 4 years, based on the way that we do the analysis. So that's all in your packet. Nate, I'm done.
All right.
So the rest is up to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pave. Just real quick. What we decided on from the committee level, there was 2 options. Again, was the automated, and then the other one was the manual. And so we've been talking about this since the beginning of the year, and we're finally at this decision. But the way the committee's leaning for tonight is we're leaning towards option 1, which is the manual pickup. The reason is like, for example, for myself, I like the totes. I like all the totes. I like the cleanliness of the town, the way it's going to look, uniformity, that kind of thing, aesthetics. That's great. However, Mr. Levenberg, you brought up a couple issues of like, hey, I got my own tote already. What about that? The unanswered questions that a lot of residents will have. And like Ms. Baumgartner said, the phone will be ringing off the hook with these new changes. So I did a small, short little poll in my neighborhood of 12 people. And of the 12 people, 10 of them wanted to just keep it as is. They're fine with it. The other 2 was myself and one other person. So
and their spouse disagreed, right?
and their spouse, yeah, it was a split household.
So this was the most scientific of polls.
This was very scientific,
Understood.
via text messaging and knocking on doors. So
Was there anyone under the age of 18 in this poll?
Did you check their ID?
I did not, no idea. So, but the way it is folks are, understand that their increase is coming. But I said, hey, what method do you like the best? And, right, I think it comes down that the residents have the options to get whatever can they want. And then not having to pay the $70 to $90 difference for another can, or another tote. So if you want a second tote or a third tote, you would have to have another $70 or $90 for that tote.
Yeah, it's and so just to make sure that it's clarified again inside the analysis, cans from the whitetail bid for 65 gallon is $70. If we buy 500 of them, it goes down to 55. For 95 gallon cans, it's $80. If we buy 300 of them, it goes to 65. So we're close, but.
Yeah. So originally, when we started this process, we were at a 60% increase for refuse. That number has come down to about 40%, somewhere around in that neighborhood. So, which is good. Compared to what we just saw recently in the news with a neighboring city with their rates going up over $700 over their contract. So I think we're in a good place. I think we can hold the line at 490 if we can, hopefully, over the base plus 3 years. But that's really, at this point, again, the committee is leaning towards option 1, the manual pickup. Again, we had debates over it and things of that nature, which is really good. But right now, it's option 1 with the manual.
Mr. Lambert?
I'll make a motion that we grant Whitetail the contract for the manual option for the amounts so listed,
Subject to bids being held and solicitor's review.
subject to solicitor approval.
There's a motion by Mr. Levenberg. Is there a second? seconded by Mr. Brown. Discussion? So I like the idea that you guys came up with of doing the manual pickup, but what's your idea of how to get everyone to actually get trash cans? Because I think that's still a really, really big problem of people not having trash cans. And
I mean,
I
that's,
think this is an opportunity for us to kind of nip that in the bud, keep our community looking completely uniform and whatnot. And I would be way more in favor of having the hybrid approach. And I also think the hauler would be in favor of the hybrid approach too, because they're going to be able to come through the neighborhoods and do things a lot quicker, more efficient, a lot less labor issues. I think long term, I think we really need to discuss this a little bit more. Whoever.
So I was in favor of the cans at that, but I also drove around last week during our pickups, and people have more refuse than you think when you really actually drive around and look. And we're already increasing a good portion of our cost. It is what it is. But then you have people, you're going to have to ask them to purchase additional cans of that where they already may have that. They may already have that, have purchased things. And if they're comfortable with that and they are using it, I agree with you. We do need some cleanup. You drive around, you do see people still using bags and that. And we have an ordinance that we need to look into and how we're going to enforce that. And we should. So that's, I think, a different discussion than what this is. I mean, yes, you could say they go together hand in hand, but in some cases they don't because we haven't enforced our own ordinance that we passed several years ago. So shame on us for not doing that portion of it. So that's my.
Good.
So my concern with doing the automated, while I personally understand the benefits of it, I think we would have more administrative costs because we would have to come up with a plan for who in-house is managing that because it's not the hauler. So that would become a borough issue now, and we are already pretty taxed with a lot. And so somebody in-house would have to manage the phone calls, would have to manage getting people different cans, who wanted cans. We'd have to figure out storage. We'd probably also have to deal with people who are taking issue with the fact that maybe they just bought a can because of the ordinance and now they have to not use that can and get another can. So I think there's going to be a lot of issues surrounding it. And it's, we already have a lot going on that our borough staff is dealing with, and it would just add to that. So I think it's something we definitely could explore but it's pretty soon after the ordinance, and I feel we'll have a lot of pushback in the initial year.
so you guys surprised me with your recommendation. I was already getting used to the idea of using the totes. I'm like, okay, so we're going to use totes. But my issue is the senior citizen that lives at home by herself, and she's going to get these two huge totes, and having her lug them or him out to the curb, probably harder for an older lady than a gentleman, or people in poor health for that matter. And that's my thing is like, and storage. They are rather large, but I could see either way. But if the committee is recommending the manual, I'm fine with that too.
So just for clarification, the manual does not include totes. Okay, just so everybody's clear on that.
And if I might add, I do have a tote from my mother-in-law who lives in Lower Macungie, and they do roll it to the machine in it and they hook it up. So
And you
if
can
people
use that.
have those, they can still use them.
They can still use those. Right. So there's a lot of unknowns. And that's why just tonight is just really, the focus here is just getting the bid, awarding the bid contingent upon the review of the borough solicitor is really what the focus is on here. But there's so many questions because of that, which then leads to what Ms. Baumgartner said, the phone is going to ring off the hook. We just passed, how long ago was the new ordinance?
It's been a few
3 years?
years. It's
been a
been a
few
little
years.
while. It's
Okay.
been probably 4 or 5 years.
I'm horrible with time, so
Yeah.
so anyway, that That's why we went from 90 gallon or 95 gallon to 65 gallon because of it's so large. Go to the mid-size, at least somebody can handle that. So that answers your question there. But yeah, it's a difficult, there's so many questions and so many outliers that we would have to put a policy together within the next 3 months. And that takes a lot.
Would there be a possibility of accepting the bid with manual? Or, yeah, manual now and then
Changing?
changing in maybe
No.
in the
No,
future? Or
you
one-
cannot do that. And I mean, you're accepting the bid subject to my review to make sure that the bids are all in compliance. So they have to hold their bids firm until that meeting has been done. And then it'll be officially approved at the next meeting. But no, once you select an option, you are stuck with it.
Gotcha.
You cannot do that into bidding rules. You can't change horse midstream.
Chad, you had, I'm sorry. Chad, you had asked a question with regard to people that don't put their trash out in a can. My solution to that is don't pick it up one time and when they call Borough Hall, all you got to say is, was it in a can? And then when they say no, then you just say, well, that's why it's not picked up. We have an ordinance and
may I-
problem solved because they're not going to want their trash building up.
May I make a quick note to that? You guys could address this through your solid waste ordinance as well to put fines and or other
It's-
related
it's
items,
in there.
which is already there.
It's in there.
But
The
you
issue,
would actually have to enforce it.
the issue is my codes department at 4 a.m. is going to need to be following the garbage truck.
No,
Or they don't pick up, which we've talked to the hauler about that. Here's the problem. They're coming back anyway. And so all they're doing is making work for themselves by skipping it. And that's been their position because at the end of the day, I don't want garbage bags sitting out at our curb for another week, right? So the hauler has kind of taken that position of like, okay, but I'm not like, if I'm going there, now it's going to cost me more money to come back because we tried to prove a point. There has to be kind of that mid of like, hey, they come there, our codes department would need to show up, deal with it, and they take the garbage anyway after we deal with
Why
it.
do we have to take the garbage?
So
I think he's saying that you don't want to leave the garbage sit.
No,
It's
then they
actually-
get fined because you can,
But-
we have it in our ordinance, you can,
Understood. Understood. I completely understand that. My point though is, so what are we going to do? We're going to wait another 7 days to pick that garbage up?
they're not going to keep it out the curb for a week.
Yeah, yes, they will.
Hmm.
Yes, they
Mm.
will.
Yeah.
Well, then you fine them.
But then you have to deal with rats or pests.
I mean, if you want to solve it, you have to enforce it. In my opinion, you just tell them, we're not picking it up until you get a can. And if they leave it out, then you fine them. And problem will be solved within probably 2 months.
Yes, I think to Mr. Balliot's point is to solve it, is to get the totes to make it easier to
Well,
solve.
I got that, but we're not going that option.
I know, I know, but that's, and that's where and that's where, for me, it's about cleanliness. You know, not only just seeing green totes all the way down, but I think to help resolve that issue, it's all one tote, everybody puts it in. Because I agree with Mr. Pepe, it's how do you enforce it? What are you doing? You got to go out there and tag it?
To me, this was an opportunity to kill two birds with, one stone,
Yeah.
having our community look uniform.
Nope.
And then having people that don't have trash cans now will have trash cans
At the same price.
at the same price.
Yeah.
I'm just telling
Chris,
you.
So I was
Okay.
initially 100% in on the hybrid option. I loved the idea of having the totes, partly because if you've been to the home improvement stores and shopped garbage cans recently, they're not cheap. They're not what they used to be. So, they have a limited lifespan. So if I'm not getting a tote, I know that within the next couple of years, I'm going to be shelling out a couple $100 on a new recycling bin and a new garbage can. With that said, having one bin and just drive around, Roy, you said you did that on garbage night. Typically, I'll have one can, but spring cleaning comes around, people are cleaning out garages or sheds or basements. What happens then if it's only being picked up with a tote? Does everything else is there an option for those extra days? And
Christmas.
I guess that concerns me. I think that could be a hardship for people, might prevent people from cleaning out. I don't know. So as much as I love the hybrid idea, I can support manual as well.
I think you guys have beat this to death.
I agree. We talk garbage more than we ever expect, right? We
Yeah.
tend to have long conversations.
Yeah, you know, they talk about like what are the most emotional things that like bother citizens, and garbage is at the top of the list. It is the most emotional discussion that citizens have, typically in a community, and it's
Yes,
refuse.
as well as feral cats. That
Yes,
is
and feral
often
cats.
that is often the one that I spend the most
You're
time
right.
on, not here.
Why do you have to bring that up?
I mean, I'm just looking
That's gonna be the
online
headline.
and, you know, the
Feral
cost
cats
of
around
a
Emmaus.
basic Rubbermaid tote that normal people use as a garbage can is $44. And we have an opportunity to buy a uniform can for $55 if we get over 500 cans.
Oh, and
To me, I don't understand why
Yeah.
we would be making a mistake and not.
yeah, I think the other thing is that you have to weigh there is it's cost neutral compared to the overall cost with manual collection. You know, they even themselves out for the first round. The problem is, as Mr. Hohenscheid had alluded to, was what if I need a second can, right? And again, that's why I was saying like there's logistics behind the whole thing of we're gonna sell you a second can, or are we going to allow you to upgrade to a 95-gallon can? Because I have a family of 4. We have 95-gallon cans at our house. We keep them outside. I don't live in a crowded borough where you kind of have to keep your can somewhere else, maybe up on the porch or around the back. We're able to just wheel it down the driveway and be done with it. A 95-gallon can is big, and my family of 4 fills up that recycling can, and most weeks pretty close to that entire 95-gallon can. Almost every week, both of them are filled. So how many families of 4 and 5 and 6 are out there that 65 gallons are not going to work? And if you're a family of 1 and you have to fill up a 95-gallon can, I'm questioning a lot of things. But you know, there are some logistical things that you have to think about in those terms of what would we need to do if we selected this. I think we could do it. We could pull it off. I'm not worried about that, but we have to move very quickly in mobilizing and having those discussions.
Has there been any discussion with any other municipalities who made the switch to see what the process was like for them?
So Salisbury did make the switch. I represent them. They did make the switch to automatic collection. I encourage you to reach out to Kathy Bonaskevich, the borough or the township manager. You can ask her. I believe Shane has spoken to her about this. It has worked. There have been some issues, and a lot of them have been mostly residents complaining that they were unhappy that they have to wheel out the big totes. It's usually older residents, more frail residents that have health issues, and that they took that into account when the Board of Commissioners did approve it because they were obviously concerned about that. But in the end, they made the switch because they thought it was beneficial.
Salisbury is a township versus a borough. There are sections that are similar to the borough, but most of them are places where they don't even have sidewalks. So it's not quite the same, but getting a response from the residents and finding out what that's good input anyway.
I wasn't saying that you're not directly comparable to Salisbury. Salisbury is truly unique because it's divided in 2 and there's a big hole in the middle of it. But, and not, obviously I love them because I represent them too, just like I love you guys. But overall, that was the one thing I wanted to point out to you that I have heard at meetings. It wasn't the automatic picking that they were upset about. It was the size of moving those cans for many of the residents. That was really the big issue that I've heard.
I just find it interesting that a lot of people don't know the South Mall is in Salisbury Township and the hospital on Cedar Crest is in Salisbury Township. People don't know that.
Now they do.
Yes, I mean, to me, I just think this is a great opportunity.
I can't bill Salisbury for my time here, so please stop talking about Salisbury.
You're billing us.
We should reduce your bill by the amount of time you spent talking about Salisbury.
Yeah, I like that one.
Here's the quote for the paper.
I think for me,
Please
this is
don't
just a
do
really
that.
great opportunity to finally stop doing things the way that we always do them. And it's a good way to do something different and, affect and enact some change in our town. But I mean, if I'm outnumbered, I'm outnumbered.
Yeah,
And I spoke where I'm at, and if no one wants to amend a motion, or table it to do a little bit more, do whatever, because I think we could probably vote on this next meeting.
I
if
don't
we had
think,
to.
I don't think you need, there's not going to be any more fact finding. Like we have as many facts as you need. I've done more analysis than you can possibly put your head around. This comes down to, do you want people to have the same garbage can and you're in charge of that and everything that goes with it, or don't you? Right? That's like that's what the 7 of you in the pink shirts have the luxury of having to decide tonight. And I know that Miss Bumgarner, I think.
Hey, that's
has something to
racist.
add.
Blue shirt.
I know. I wore mine Friday. I don't do clothes over the weekend apparently. But I think Miss Bumgarner had.
You too, blue shirt.
I was just going to reiterate that I like the idea of it, but we have a significant increase that residents are going to have to deal with, and the optics would be that there would be a sense that we might have chosen to do the automated and raise the price because of that choice, whereas I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like we would have to deal with more public relations issues if we make the change. And I just don't know that we have the capacity in our borough staff in this building to be handling that.
Okay,
I like to call the question.
sure.
Is there a second on this one, Shane?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have
I made the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Labenberg and a second by Mr. Brown. And it was for the manual collection contingent upon holding the bid and solicitor approval. Right?
Yep. For final award at the
Yeah,
next meeting.
for final award. Yep.
Any further discussion?
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Say nay. Nay.
6-1.
6-1. Thank you guys for that. That was great discussions. Under communications, we have a application.
Thank you,
Oh.
very much.
Oh, thank you, Paul. We have a volunteer application from Jonas Arguello,
Close enough. That's
Diego.
Arguello, I think.
Yeah.
Arguello Delgado.
We will send that application to CRD to set up for possible interview. We have no borough engineers report. Solicitors report.
I have no report tonight. Most of my items have been addressed elsewhere.
Thank you.
Progress.
Unfinished business part 1. We have none. We have no new business. We have no unfinished business part 2. Does anyone have an item not on the agenda they'd like to bring forward? Hearing none. Madam Mayor's report.
Thank you. You have Proclamation 2024-606 for Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat this year will be Friday, October 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. If you're going to participate, please put your porch light on. We will be serving hot dogs and candy at the police department along with Mission Barbecue this year. They will be here as well, and they will be handing out sliders. So come on out, get a hot dog or a sandwich. Also, applications for the Citizens Police Academy are now available. You can pick them up at the police department Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And I believe the class this time will be scheduled for February. Other than that, progress.
Thank you. We're going to start out off with committee reports. First up is Public Works, Mr. Anders.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing for official action. However, I did want to just read an excerpt from the community newsletter in regarding to curbside leaf collection, because I know, the leaves are falling. And so we do start pickup on Monday, October 21st, and it runs through Friday, December 6th. And also, if need be, you can, if you have leaves beforehand, please take them to the compost site compost site during normal business hours. We do have our next meeting October 14th, which we'll be canceling due to upcoming budget meetings and that. So we will cancel that meeting. And with that, I will report progress.
Thank you. Health, sanitation, and codes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nothing else for official action, except for just want to let the other fellow council members that zoning ordinance is being pushed through to the Planning Commission and Lehigh Valley Planning Commission and to the other agencies that need to be involved. So there has been a lot. We had a task force meeting, I think last week or two, something of that nature, to iron out a few details. So with that said, the new ordinance hopefully should be wrapped up here in December. So besides that, nothing else for official action. Our next meeting is going to be, let's see here, October 15th. We're going to have that open. Mr. Chairman, you recommended just leave that open just in case something would happen. But I sent out an email today to the committee members and to the zoning team that for right now, we're going to cancel October, November, and December's meeting. But unless official action needs to be taken, we'll leave a window open for that. Besides that, I report progress.
Thank you. Next up, Parks and Recreation, Mr. Hunshad.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, last week we had the Laura Street Park opening celebration, had representatives from, I believe, every department in the borough there. Great turnout from the residents. Kristen, I want to thank you for all that you did. You had a great spread there with food and snacks and stickers. I don't know who else may have helped you, or if it was just you, but thanks to all who were involved with that.
You're welcome. And Jonathan White, our Parks and Recreation Director, worked simultaneously with me throughout the entire project from beginning to end. So he deserves credit also.
Perfect. So thank you, Jonathan. It was really a great night. It was great to see everyone out there. For official action is the endowment fund waiver. So just to give a little background on that, EYA has this endowment that goes back decades. There's still a sizable amount of money in there. They would like to spend that endowment out to be able to use that money to pay for the building that they're going to be putting up at South 4th Street. Since we as the borough are secondary beneficiaries, we just need to basically say that we are okay with them spending it down and pretty much closing the endowment out once they have that ready to go. So I will put that in the form of a motion that we.
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Hold on one second. Go ahead.
So first of all, there is a resolution, so we'll have to adopt it as a resolution.
Okay.
Okay. Secondly, EYA members are here. So I'm not sure if they want to, if there's anything they need to discuss with this, but our solicitor has also done a formal review on it.
I can give you there were a couple of items that I pointed out that Mr. Neely, who is their attorney, I thought we wanted some clarity on the numbers from him. Has he gotten back to us yet?
On the
items I raised?
Not on the lease.
Not on the
Yeah,
lease?
we're not doing the lease yet.
Okay.
We're this is just the endowment.
All right. If that's the case, then you have every right, and I believe I mentioned this to you previously, you have every right as a secondary beneficiary. You ultimately can waive said rights in that trust and dissolve it. That gives them the authority to do it as the primary beneficiary. With respect to the lease, that is something that will have to be addressed later. We're talking to Mr. Neely about that. But beyond that, this is something that is within your purview. It is on the agenda and it is ripe for a motion should you choose.
I would just say adopt the resolution within the attachment. But yeah, so essentially, just so you know, we are preparing a lease, and so our solicitor was talking about the lease. There's some details that need to be worked out on the lease, so unfortunately, it wasn't going to be ready for tonight. Mr. Neely and I will have further discussions in the next week, and the hope is that lease agreement will be in front of you at your October 21st council meeting. The building that they're building, the borough is going to own, just like the EPEMFA, the football building down at Community Park. We own that building, but we have a long-term lease with the organization because it's a permanent structure on our property. We essentially own it. It would be the same thing. So, we're asking you to waive your rights to this endowment. so that EYA can build a building that we technically own, although they're going to have all the rights to use it, and and the lease will be detailed in that regard. But that's essentially what's happening here.
Yeah,
Is
it's the term we would use in law world is functionally it's a ground lease that we have permanent rights to. And you're giving up money that you wouldn't usually get to anyway because you're a secondary beneficiary, not a primary beneficiary, to construct something on your own property that you will have a right to. So it benefits you in the end.
Mr. Lamberg?
I'll make a motion to pass.
I think
A
I think
resolution.
Mr. Hohenscheid was.
Right, so I'll put that in the form of a motion to approve the resolution, and that's on pages 20 and 21 of the packet,
Subject to the signature of these.
approving that waiver as stated in the
We don't
resolution.
need to do the endowment
Okay.
Why couldn't I have that?
because he already tried
It's
to
his-
stop them.
Is there a second?
I was gonna read the
Mr.
resolution.
Anders? Is there any further discussion? All
I
those
think
in
Mr.
favor,
Labenberg wants to complain that he didn't get to make the motion.
No.
all those in favor say aye.
I was
Aye.
like,
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes.
Our next meeting currently is next Thursday, October 17th at 4:45. We'll keep that as is for now because there are a few things to discuss, and I believe that will be via Zoom only, and I will report progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is public safety. Ms. Baumgartner.
Thank you. There are no items for official action. Our next meeting will be this week, October 9th at 9 a.m. Report progress.
Thank you. General Administration, Mr. Lavenberg.
Thank you. We have two resolutions. We have Resolution 2024-23, a resolution to apply for Penvest funds for the Borough of Emmaus Waterworks PFAS treatment project. And I believe that Shane explained that this is a formality that we need to do. Is there anything to add to that, or is that pretty much?
No,
it?
that's it. So in order for us to formally apply for the funds, we have a whole bunch of documents that we have to approve, and this is.
So I'll place that in a form of a motion.
Motion by Mr. Lavenberg. Is there a second? Ms. Watt, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes.
Then we have Resolution 2024-24, a declaration of official intent to reimburse water funds used to construct improvements to its public drinking water system with funds received from the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority. And Shane, do you have anything to add to this?
I would say the same thing.
It's
Yeah,
just
same
the
thing.
formality
I
for the
think-
paperwork to get
Yeah, I
the
think
process
what
going.
I think what this does is because we had to do the purchase order
Separate.
for the tanks ahead of the application for Penvest, I think this legally would allow us to try to go after that 1.1 million through Penvest, so we can get that money back.
Okay, so I'll place that in the form of a motion. And
Motion by Mr. Lavenberg. Is there a second? Ms. Watt, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oppose?
there are meeting minute notes from our September 18th meeting. Shane, is October 16th one of the dates that you will not be able to, or you will be able to attend?
No, I would
You
prefer,
won't be.
I would prefer not to.
So we will be canceling our September 18th meeting for, I'm sorry, October 16th meeting for budget purposes. So our next meeting will be in November. Progress.
Thank you, Mr. Lavenberg.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Next up is budget and finance. And we need to discuss the pool repair engineering. This is something that we discussed in the committee. And then attached is their proposal. The only thing different that what I found in their proposal versus what we discussed in the committee is we discussed this costing about $13,000.
Yeah, that cost went up.
And we discussed it. It was about 13,000, and in their proposal, I'm seeing now that it's 18,400. So it went up, almost 5,000, actually over $5,000 in just engineering. I don't know if that's something that the committee still feels that they support, or if this is something that we need to discuss a little bit further, or figure out if this is something we let Shane speak about a little bit about what's going on at the pool, so all of council understands what's going on at the pool.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I'm extremely disappointed that the price is different. That's not what we were advised that this price was going to be, but we got a formal quote today. So I apologize. I was led to believe it was 13,000 and not 18,000. Here's the issue. As I've said, you know, and I've said it before. I've publicly said it. The small pool, that is what it is. If you stop the water, it drains out within a day. The big pool, though, is losing 50 to 60,000 gallons a day in it. And as you will see in the budget presentations, we will bring in the large piece of concrete that literally just chipped away. Not because somebody was hitting it with a hammer, but it just literally chipped away. And there are large cracks that have formed in places in that pool that were not that middle seam where we've been dealing with it for a long time. So we're losing a lot of water. And at the end of the day, either we spend the money that was in the pool study and redo the entire pool, which is a very large number, or we fix the pool and patch it, or you do nothing and at some point you shut the pool down, right? So like you have three options. The reality is you have a lot of millions of dollars in front of you in water and sewer that you've got to deal with. And so the Budget and Finance Committee talked about all of that the other day, and there's no question that we want to fix the swimming pool on a permanent basis, but we need to come up with a plan, you know. And if I just go out and get a DCNR grant and I land a $2.5 million DCNR grant, right? If I land 2.5 million, you have to match that with 2.5 million, and you have to do it within 3 years. And so, do you have 2.5 million that you're sitting on, right? So, like, we need to kind of put together a real plan for a long-term project and strategize how we would do that, because just going and applying for a grant and magically saying, okay, let's go match it now, is not like, you don't do that at home, right? You don't remodel your whole house and then say, well, we'll figure out how to pay for it later. You kind of put that plan in place ahead of time and hope everything falls the way that you want it to. And we really need to do that. But the real question is right now, like, what do we do now? And so they've told us that they believe that engineering it, looking at the cracks, they believe that the cost to do the kind of the patch work would be around $150,000. That's what we're being told by them. Again, they could engineer it and tell you that you have a big empty hole underneath, or they could say, hey, you just need to parch things. You know, that's why you would need to spend the money on the engineering rather than continuously just putting another layer of paint over this baby and hoping that it survives another season. There's like 27 layers of paint over this thing. So that's why they're asking for you to engineer it. We would need, if we're going to fix it in the spring, if it's going to be a sandblasting and parge and patch, you would need to do the engineering right now. So we haven't completely closed the pool in terms of like watertight, because to do the engineering, you have to drain the pool out. The engineer has to come in. We have some time, but this isn't something, unfortunately, that you can wait 2 weeks or 4 weeks, because once freeze season comes in, we're done, right? That pool has to be completely closed, completely watertight, and done. So we have a little bit of time that we could drain it out right now, get them in here, do engineer work, fill the pool back up, and then finish closing it. But that's why we're asking for the engineering now if we're gonna do it. If we do it in the spring, you're not going to be able to engineer and do a project unless you delay opening the pool, which still could happen, but you're more likely not to if you do it this way. So
I'm in support of doing the engineering, which you stated will be done this year, with the intention starting next year. Well, we'll drain it for the winter, then it's going to be sandblasted. Well, the engineering will be done, sandblasted. We will repair what needs to be repaired, hopefully open it on time or not too delayed, maybe a week or two at the most. And then it's $150,000 to repair, with the intent. Our long-term goal is to get a grant, and we're looking at a 5-year plan to take care of the overall issue. So that's the goal, is to actually take care of the issue.
yeah, I think our hope is that this is a 150,000 that's going to get us there. That's the hope. And again, 150,000 is getting thrown around by that company saying that's a good budget number. You don't know until they actually engineer, do the engineer work, and give kind of a final determination. But I don't know that we're going to have that number by the time budget time is done.
We
I
have to
don't.
do it
I
before
don't.
it freezes.
I know.
I just wanted to raise some concerns about this particular company because they're the ones who did our pool study. That was a challenge. And there were some concerns about their approach to the pool study. I'm wondering too, and particularly the last end of it, and this was just done in 2022 is when it wrapped up, so it wasn't very long ago. They also said that the pool was fine. Ultimately,
Well, I mean,
it didn't need anything immediate, that it would be okay.
Yeah.
So my concern is now we're here, it's not fine, and this is the company that's
So-
going to be.
As you'll see in your budget presentation, there also weren't cracks all over the entire shallow end of the pool when they did the study. I mean, we literally, this year, we had major cracks open up right after we opened that pool, to the point where we were thinking, okay, should we shut down and drain it and parge it again, or do we muddle through? The only crack that was in that pool that was noticeable at the time was the same crack that when they built the pool, they built it with a seam in the middle. And that's where it's always that's where it was always the problem. That's where we've always lost water. We believe we are losing water in multiple areas now. They did do a core sample before, right? And so, the bottom of that pool is about 2 feet thick. And the core samples, I mean, we saw them. By their account, I mean, I wish I was an engineer. I'd make, I'd be able to tell you that they're full of BS or not, but by their account, it looked like
I
it's
don't
solid.
doubt there's a need. My wondering is if there's any other option for.
Well, so I think the city of Allentown has proven that you don't go get a regular engineer for a pool engineering, right? So there's not a whole lot of options out there for pool specialists.
Okay.
That's not 10 times that cost.
And this
Yeah.
particular vendor required a lot of management on our end and kind of
It did.
supporting and nudging. So I'm wondering if how would that work? Who's going to be monitoring and managing?
Oh, we have a director of Parks and Recreation that
Okay.
would have nothing better to do than to sit on top of them, I would hope.
Okay.
Just one question,
Mr.
Shane.
Anderson?
There isn't anything like a ground sonar or anything that tells you underneath there's
Not for
voids
not
or-
for $18,000. There's not.
No,
There is that technology out there.
Right.
Absolutely, there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
you're
I-
going to pay a lot of money for that type of ground penetrating radar and or sonar. That is high-end technology, and for a small project like this,
When
it's
we
usually
Okay,
not feasible.
when-
it was,
when
it was
we
just it was
received-
just a question because
when we received bids on the original study, there was one company that had proposed doing the sonar, and the cost of that company to do the study was something like 3 times what we paid. And I believe that sonar was a large bulk of that cost. Quite honestly, is it worth knowing if there's a hole underneath that pool?
I don't know. Is there? I mean,
That's a lot of
if-
water
if-
to lose daily.
Yeah.
Right. There's
Right.
a lot of water being lost.
But if
and
your 5-year plan is to replace that pool, right, or to you're digging the bottom out anyway.
But if there's a big hole underneath and that's where all the water's going, is it going to someday open up on us when, God help us, there's a full pool on a weekend? Just saying.
You probably should have been worrying about that 8 years ago when you got elected. Because we've had that same discussion for 12 and a half years that I know of.
I understood.
Bless you.
It's just, we're throwing more money at it.
My concerns are the same as Ms. Bumgarner's concerns with the aquatic facility design. Like those folks it wasn't a great experience, and it's not a great experience now from going from 13,000 to 18,400. And I discussed.
Well, but that may not be on them. That may be on the person that told us what the number was.
Okay.
So I'm not going to sit here and publicly chastise them because I didn't have that conversation with them. And I never saw anything in writing until today.
I think it's a lot of money to throw at the pool, but we're going to have to figure out what needs to be done. So, I mean, if it needs to be spent to be figured out what a fix is, but I don't think you're going to fix this for $150,000 either. Go ahead, Mr. Lamberg.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 18,400 for engineering with the intent that we're going to budget up to 150,000 to correct the issue.
A motion by Mr. Labenberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hohenscheid. Any further discussion?
I just putting $150,000 when you don't know it's an unknown. I would prefer that not be in the motion.
Well, then it's useless to do the engineering study because that's what's going to tell us what to fix.
So what if
The intent is to get us through the next few years so we can get the pool fixed for real with a grant, hopefully. If we don't do this, I guess it would probably be easier for you if you saw the pictures. The cracks, the chunks. Just remember, they sealed that this year. And where they sealed, it's already cracked. It needs to be fixed or we're not going to have a pool.
I'm just saying the cost, I don't want to say it's going to be 150 and what comes back and what if it's 200? What if it's 300? Like, I just
Are you
don't
going to be
feel
the one that
having in
tells
there.
the community that the pool's closed for?
No, I'm just saying in the motion, I wouldn't put that number there if you don't know it. I'm
I-
okay with putting the money out for the engineering study, but the other part of it to say 150,000, that's what we're going to budget. Well, what if it comes to me more and we're at budget season and we say we got to do more?
That's why I said up to 150,000. If it goes to 300,000, then it's a different issue.
That's just my objection to it. That's all.
So for procedural purposes, the motion on the floor has a cap of 150,000. If you disagree with that, you can vote against the motion and then make a new motion that would say that. But the motion itself is now in discussion, so it's subject to vote once discussion ends. I think that, does everybody understand where we are procedurally?
We can't amend the motion?
Somebody could make a motion to amend, but
Well, I'm not going to amend it, but my intent here is to have the engineering study. They're going to say what we need to do, and we're going to have a cost attached to that. And if it's below 150,000, we move ahead and do it. But if it comes back 300,000, then we're not going to, then we have to decide what we're going to do.
I think maybe an emotion too is we need to maybe make them put a date on this. Like kind of, make them accountable. Like if you don't have this done by this, like you're.
Well, it has to be done this year or we're not going to be able to repair it.
It has to be done before the freeze. So they're going to have to come in here pretty directly. So I would say that the work would have to be done this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Hohenscheid or Mr. Brown?
So I agree that the 150,000 has nothing to do with this, in rethinking my second. So I'm fine with voting on this motion as it is, and then hopefully things can go in such a way that we can fix it in another motion.
I have another question. So they are proposing their fee for engineering, but we do not necessarily need to go with them for fixing it.
That's correct. Yeah,
Right.
that's correct.
So my concern about, on one hand, we do want to acknowledge that we are committed to fixing it, whatever that may cost, but I'm concerned about putting it together with this.
I think
I
for
just wanna
I think
keep
for the
it-
fix of it, I think you have to put it out the bid no matter what.
Right.
So I think you have to bid it because it's a repair to the pool. It's not something that they just automatically get. The professional service they can get. If you decide not to go with them for the professional service, we're not getting it done this year. We'd have to try like heck to hoping that there's a thaw early next year to empty that pool and get it going. And we'd have to have a company in place by early next year if you don't go with them, because there's no time to go out and find another aquatic engineer now for this year.
Shane, how much do we spend in chlorine? Because if we're losing 50, 60,000 gallons, is that per week or day?
That's per day. Yeah, that's pretty.
So if we're losing $50,000-$60,000 per day, how much are we spending extra just on chlorine?
Well, so do the math, right? It's a 780,000 gallon pool. You're losing 50 to 60,000 gallons a day. So you're looking at 8% loss of water every day. So
Whatever it costs for that. I mean,
yeah.
I don't believe that he has the exact number because that's a.
Well, the other problem is the chlorine plant caught on fire 2 or 3 years ago, and the cost of chlorine has been through the roof ever since. So it's hard to even say what that real increase.
My point is we're spending money on chlorine when we shouldn't be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't like the motion, a motion to table can be made to put this on the table, and then a new motion can be raised. If that's, I'm just trying to give you the procedural options because I don't know what you want to do here.
I'd like to call the question.
Nate has a.
I have a
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
So I got a question because I hear two oppositions because you both were here during this group's.
Yeah, and to clarify, my opposition isn't to the work or the fact that we need to fix the pool. My concern is about what service we will get from this particular.
Okay, so and now my question is, because during the zoning ordinance, we had a agency doing our zoning ordinance that didn't come through that a lot of people had issues with.
So they gave us a final product, and quite honestly, the final product I think is good, right? I don't think we should discount that the final product is bad.
But is it the same as the zoning or my
It's
question
not the same
is-
company, no.
No, I know it's not the same company, but the same issues.
Yeah, and that was the problem. It was like
Implementation.
we had some pulling teeth, like dragging them, and we did a lot of things. And Miss Baumgartner, to her credit, spearheaded this project, and it got painful because we ended up doing a lot of things, I think, on our own to keep things moving. You know, some public feedback sessions, some survey work, some things that we expected them to do that they seem to have been dragging on.
And Nate, what you, myself, and Shane and Mike are doing on the zoning ordinance, that's what Shauna did.
And so that's kind of to my point is what I'm listening. Again, I wasn't part of it, but that's kind of what to my point is that I feel like at the end of the day, people and council members are doing a lot of the legwork when this happens. So I feel like my knee-jerk reaction right now is not to support this group because of the issues that came up with the.
Again, I would tell you that they're more capable than any local engineer in terms of.
Sure, I get
this.
it.
And by the way,
it's cautious for me.
Yeah, they were not timely. That was a big issue for us. Again, if we don't go with them, you're not engineering it this year. I can't tell you what we're going to do next year. That pool could not open at all next year. It could open up on time, and you just deal with
50 gallons,
losing 50,000, or at that point it might be a small city. I don't know, but that's something that again you take a chance on one way or the other, right? We could work over the winter and try to find an engineering company and pray to God that we have an early thaw so we can drain the pool, do engineering, which by the way is going to take a couple months. So you're literally, if you have to do work immediately, you will not open up on Memorial Day. I can assure you that. If you engineer in the spring and decide that you're going to do the work right away, you will not open up on Memorial Day just based on an April 1st date. There's no way, because getting any other engineer to do work in a timely manner is like pulling teeth anymore. So
is it guaranteed that they will do it this year and get it done?
That they would do the engineer work? Yes.
Okay.
They have to, because we have to drain the pool and then refill the pool. So there's a timeline for them to have to come in.
Okay.
What I told you at the beginning of the conversation was what I don't know is that you would have a number to fix things by the time you adopt a budget. That's what I don't know.
Shane,
It took us 6 months to engineer a paving project on South 2nd Street. I'm just going to say, which to me was a 2-week thing, but.
I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying we have to spend $150,000 with what they find. I'm saying we can spend up to 150. If we don't approve it, we don't approve it. But I'm saying allow us to spend up to 150. I'm not saying that we have to.
But
We
again,
anticipated
if
going
it's
over
more
that.
money, we
Absolutely.
don't know.
Absolutely.
150,000 may not cover the full
Then we
thing.
discussed during budget, Roy. I mean,
So then why have it in
they're
that
saying
motion?
that a good number is 150,000 to fix it, but we don't actually know until the engineering's
So
report comes out.
why have that in the motion at all?
Because I don't want to spend $18,000 and then we're not going to do anything to fix it.
So my concern is we discussed also in budget and finance, where we could come up with the 13,000. I don't know where we're going to come up with an extra 5,400.
If I can't come up with $5,000 in
We
a
got
$25
problems.
million budget, we've got bigger issues.
Okay.
And that's, I'm going to leave it there.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
But so we have one eye on that one, right?
Yes.
One
All
aye.
right, so Brent was the Brent. Yes. So denied. Okay. All right.
Now, Mr. Chair, you can entertain other motions as well.
Would anyone like to make another motion on pool engineering repair? Mr. Hoonshed?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the engineering contingent upon it being done this calendar year
For the
pool engineering.
cost of 18,400.
Right, as stated, the 18,400, was it?
Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Baumgartner. Any further discussion? Mr. Lindberg?
I'm going to vote no because I don't want to spend $18,000 without the commitment to fix the pool. Granted, it doesn't cost a fortune. Then we got another issue.
Yep. No, I understand what you're saying. I don't.
I don't want to
think that-
spend the 18,000 and not be committed to fixing it. That's my own opinion, so.
Yeah, and and I get it because
Yeah.
you're in the middle of budget discussions, and if you don't have that number, a number in your budget, and you decide to cut, then you did spend $18,000 on, well, at least finding out though. I mean, I would say that.
I think we're going to find out that the
Yeah.
repairs are much more than $150,000.
Well, again, we're asking him, how do I get by next year? He's already given you the blueprint.
Yep.
The blueprint, though, is somewhere between $4 and a lot of $1 million.
Part of another larger discussion
Yeah.
that, we
That's
don't know
the
where.
5-year plan we were talking about.
Right.
Yep. All right, so we got a motion. We have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
Nay. 2 nays.
2 nays.
Eight,
Okay.
Brent.
So Brent and
Nate voted twice, no. He doesn't want anything.
Actually, that is correct. Mr. Brown did vote no twice, so Mr. Brown just is opposed to pools.
I wish Jessica luck in writing these minutes.
All right, that's done.
All right, so the next thing is a purchase of L3 Harris radios. So we have a radio savings account. Everybody knows that Lehigh County is switching over the radio systems. And we had a opportunity presented to our chief, our fire chief, that we were able to purchase some radios at a significant discount. And right now we have just under $100,000 available in that savings account that we've been putting away. And he would like to purchase $100,000 worth of radios. I don't know exactly what that comes out to unit wise.
I think it was 34, wasn't it?
No, he
Yeah.
asked for 34, but I don't.
I think it's at least 15
Oh.
radios, I think is what the number is going to be. Remember, these are the NFPA ones, so they're all, they have to be fire rated. They're much more expensive than the police radios, for example, that don't have to be fire rated. You see the note. I think the notes were pretty detailed. I sent an email today kind of trying to detail it out as much as I could. They have a sale right now. There's a lot of unknowns moving forward with the county, but we are buying $750,000 of radios one way or the other. Again, it's kind of everything seems to be backwards right now. We're asking you to buy these because there's a sale. You're going to see the bigger presentation during your budget and finance or your budget workshop stuff. And I think you have a really good opportunity then to kind of corner the chiefs on numbers and quantities and things like that. I can tell you that buying 80 some $1,000s of radios doesn't scratch the surface. So I'm not overly concerned about, what does this do in terms of the quantity? Is it too many? It's like 10% of the overall cost. So
I guess the total amount in the savings account is $83,393.43.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of whatever we can get with the mobile radios for $83,000 and the change you just mentioned.
Motion by Mr. Lavenberg. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Anders. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to make sure this flyer says that there are only 120 units available at the price, assuming that other municipalities aren't going to snatch them all up, and then we're paying full
So
price.
we actually spoke with them. So I had Chief Miller call them again right around 5:15, and confirmed that we're still okay for the quantity that we would end up buying.
Okay,
So
thank you.
and that the sale is still okay for this week because it was supposed to be, I think, terminated like Saturday or something. But
Okay.
Any other discussion on this? I mean, I brought up some concern points in the meeting. I don't know if anyone else has any other concerns. I think we're maybe a little bit premature on this, because it could not be implemented for another solid year until the system's actually up and functioning. And with not having definitive answers from the county, I think we're jumping the gun on this. But at some point, I think we're going to have to buy them. But I think we're premature.
yeah, so L3 Harris is definitely the contracted carrier.
Yep.
And we have heard a dozen times that dates were switching. Nobody knows. Nobody seems to be able to give us answers.
Yep.
We do know for sure that all the contracts are signed. They believe that by the end of 2025, the system is going to be live. What they haven't told us is how they're going to be financed. The entire county gets the royal treatment on this, right? So every volunteer fire department, every ambulance department, every police station, we're all part of the program. County's talked about offering like a 20-year interest-free loan. You let me know what the electronic is that you own that lasted you 20 years. And I will tell you that I want it because most electronics don't get you, especially a radio like this, will not get you past 5 to 10 years. You can't take out an interest-free loan on something that you're going to just be borrowing money for again in 10 years. That's bad investment, right? So them offering a 20-year interest-free loan is like offering a 20-year loan on your car today that's only going to last you 8 years.
So that's not the only issue. What's the purchase for all of them that we need? 700,000,
Yeah, it's like
$750,000.
Yeah.
And these are going to last 5 to 7 years. We're going to have to do it all over again. It's ridiculous. I am so ticked off that we're forced to do this for just a couple places in the county. It goes back to when Wes was on council, Shane, saying we can't have every possible piece of equipment for an ambulance. You have to eventually figure out what the risks are for not having X piece of equipment and the value of how much it costs for that equipment. If it saves one person's life, but it costs $100,000, do you still purchase it? And you have to make those decisions. And I think the county should have done that because it's ridiculous for some of these municipalities. Can you imagine like a small borough like Copley having to do this?
Well,
I mean, of us,
for
us.
I think of not even like a borough, right? So we have a tax base that we technically has to pay that bill. I think of the volunteer fire department that the tax base only gives $10,000 a year to. That's a lot of hoagie sales. That's a lot of fundraisers for them to have the same amount of radios, by the way, that we're going to have on our vehicles and on our people because they all have pretty much the same amount of stuff. So like they have to come up with this too, not just us, but the volunteer departments that don't have the backing of the municipality to deal with this.
And they usually have to beg for grants to get them. Like
Yeah.
they have no other way other than standing out on streets with boots or trying to find.
And how do you get a grant on something that we're being forced to purchase and we know we have to buy it next year? Because getting grants, you're usually we have
Year in
a
advance.
5-year plan, right? Of okay, I need it. I need to start looking for funding now. But they're not going to get the kind of money that we're looking at here. They're not.
It's almost like we're being penalized for having all the services because Lower McCounty doesn't have a police department. They don't have to pay for it. We're being forced to pay for it.
But they're going to be paying for 2 or 3 fire departments, or the volunteer fire departments are going to be paying for it, right? And that just comes down to philosophy of their elected officials.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose?
No.
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 I got 3 and 3. Chris, I didn't hear what you voted.
I was I.
So it's 5 and 2.
4-3 then.
Or
All right, so who was the 3?
Chris and this side was I, and those
I
3
have
were no.
Shanna and Nate. What were you?
No.
Okay.
All right.
So
It was 4-3.
4-3.
Gardner,
All right, Shanna.
Brown.
You guys are making things interesting tonight.
all the Bs. Baumgartner, Brown, and Balliot.
Dad,
Sounds like a law firm.
Nate, or no.
3 Bs.
They might
Probably
be
cheaper than me, that law firm. And better.
Okay. All
At
right.
least it's zoning for you, Nate.
Yes. All right, next up is resolution 2024-25, and it's the bill list as followed. The bill list is $839,070.27. We have payrolls 19 and 20 for $398,000 $50.53. Payroll taxes of $130,902.92 for a grand total of $1,368,023.72. And I'll place that in the form of a motion.
So moved. You
Uh,
can't place the motion. I'll make it for you.
I
No,
cannot make a motion.
not unless you vacate your seat.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Okay.
bill list.
Motion by Mr. Lavenberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Watt, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
7 ayes.
7 ayes.
Hey, we got one.
It won't be a full night until the mayor has to vote.
Yeah. Give it time. Give it time.
like that.
Yeah, we're not done
It's
yet.
always funny when it happens.
Attached is our significant revenue and expenses for the month of September. Also, our meeting notes. Does anyone have any questions? Is everyone able to log into the budgeting software, all that kind of stuff? Because if not, make sure you guys get with Shane, make sure your passwords work and all that. He's going to give us some early access to be able to look at things and start reading some things way before we get our packet, which will be a little bit different. And then for people who have been on council and the people who attended the meetings last year, he's still going to give us out the same printouts that we used to get for at least this year. And we'll use kind of both to be able to work through it. And some of the rundown of what he gave us during the meeting, it's going to actually be pretty neat to be able to go through the way that the budgeting software works. And it should be a little bit faster of a process. And with that, I will report progress. Our next meeting is November 6th at 11 a.m. Community Relations Planning and Development, Ms. Watt?
Nothing for official action. Our next meeting is tomorrow at 5 by Zoom, which I would like to have, however, briefly, if that's okay with the committee. I know it's budget season, it's tough, but I would like to discuss the 5-year plan, which kind of touches.
Yeah, this
on
is
the
part of the
budget.
budget. So yeah, this is, I agree with you. I think we need to have that meeting.
Progress.
Attached, you're going to find boards and commission meeting minutes, personal appeals part 2. Does anyone have personal appeal? There's nobody online and nobody in the audience with an appeal.
Well, he's back there. Does he?
What's that?
There's a gentleman. No.
And he shook his head no.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Nobody online?
No.
Now we wore 'em out.
Well, one of them was John Hart.
Well, his bedtime was
Are you
6:30,
joking?
so.
No, he was on.
Oh, was?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Borough managers report.
So just one thing. We have now put the mobile home out for bid 3 times. One on Penn bid. The high bid was $38,000. It didn't meet anywhere close to what our minimum was. We have now advertised twice in the newspaper and received 0 bids, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing. However, what I would ask for you at this point is, because we've done it twice consecutively with 0 bids, and then the third time without any qualifying bids, we now have the right to sell this thing directly. Now, we don't have anybody, unless, like I said in my email, unless one of you knows somebody who wants to buy a trailer. But I would ask that you authorize us to commence with either a direct sale or not. Maybe we decide to use it at the fire training grounds instead. But I'm looking for direction, essentially, is what I'm looking for here as to what you want to do. So,
Want me to explain what?
yeah.
So just so you know, under the bidding rules for this type of property under 18-1202.1, if I'm correct, because it's gone out for bids several different times and has not come back with qualifying bids, it's 2 times technically,
Yep.
but you did it a 3rd time just to be safe. It is now subject to direct sale and doesn't have to be bid the same way. So it doesn't go through the same issues of standard bidding procedure.
You know someone?
No,
okay.
I was gonna ask you, what are we looking to get for it?
Well, so our goal was 100,000, right? I think at this point, I think if we get 80,000, I think we would be satisfied.
can
But
we-
it's only 2 years old.
Can we contact the local mobile home parks?
Well, again, that's the whole point of allowing us now to go through a direct sale, right? So now at this point, I would be able to reach out to
And contact people.
mobile home parks or construction companies who might use these things for.
And we still have to approve the sale. So if it's 60,000 and we feel, no, we shouldn't take it because it's 60,000, let's just use it in the at the
Right,
fire
right.
ground.
There's kind of a like, oh, we're not getting anything over this.
All right.
Is it really worth taking that much of a loss?
So I'll make a motion to allow staff to try to find somebody to purchase it. And if, I don't know, like to get at least, what'd you say, 80,000?
I don't think that
Don't
applies.
include,
So
don't include.
No.
The
Okay.
minimum has been the problem.
So allow staff to put it out for purchase or for
Directly,
sale.
directly.
For sale.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to us anyhow, correct?
Correct. Yeah, you have to approve.
So the motion is going to be simple. Just allow the staff to put it out for sale.
Motion
sale.
by
Direct sale.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Labenberg. Is there a second?
Somebody make a second.
What are you guys doing?
I'll second it.
I'm gonna park it in your front yard somewhere.
Well,
You guys think I'm gonna rotate
in
it?
New zoning, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
Seconded by Mr. Brown.
Killing me.
Is there any further discussion?
We need that money for next year's budget.
Mr. Laberberg, I could put 150,000 limit on it for the pool.
Yeah.
Can you disassemble the trailer and put it at the bottom of the pool? Is it possible? to get that
Might
covered?
have to use it to fill the hole.
Be an amenity.
Yeah, it's an amenity.
They got a boat down in Philly.
Make a second snack stand out of it to double our revenue.
We're doing great, guys. Well done.
Yeah. You guys obviously have nothing to do tonight. The Phillies don't play tonight, right? So we're
No,
Tomorrow.
Tuesday.
No Phillies, no Eagles, nothing to care about.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? 7 ayes.
if you know anybody looking for a house trailer, we have one for sale. I'm just putting it out there.
I would buy it, but I'm not going to take it 3 hours up to the mountains.
We'll help you.
Isn't there 2?
If the price is right, we will make sure that it gets to wherever it is within reason.
Same thing.
Do you have anything else?
Oh, no, you have enough.
All right, under president's business, I only have about maybe 3 hours worth of stuff. No, I'm kidding. I have none. Yeah. No executive session tonight, correct, Shane?
No, so you saw an email from me today?
Yep. That's it.
It was informational purposes only at this point, so.
Motion for adjournment.
I think it's resolved.
So moved.
There a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Lavenberg, seconded by Mr. Anders. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Hey, I'm kidding.
7 ayes. Adjourned
we're
at
counting that.
7:40.
Including whoever was voting by emojis, by the way.
Yeah, if you
I don't
could
remember
please-
what meeting that was
I
at,
will
but
reach out
it is.
to Morgan.
Just give it to me.